When I first entered the world of work, I thought the answer to my financial problems was simple. Work harder, work longer, push myself to the limit, and eventually life would reward me. And in many ways, it did. A job gives you dignity, it puts food on the table, and it teaches you responsibility. But it took me a while to realize something deeper. If all you ever do is trade your hours for dollars, you will eventually run out of hours before you run out of needs. That was a sobering thought for me, because I wanted more than just to survive. I wanted to build. You see, money is not just something you work for. Money is something you can train. You put it to work, and it begins working even when you rest. A job can give you a living, and that is noble, but only when you begin to create assets, investments, businesses, property, or systems that work without you can you move toward wealth. Wealth is when your money begins to earn more than you do. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that while you were asleep, your investments were busy producing income. That's the kind of freedom you want to aim for. I'll never forget when I first discovered this principle. Someone once told me, "You can't pay your bills with effort alone. You need leverage." At first, I thought leverage was just about working harder or smarter. But leverage in money means multiplying your efforts through capital. A dollar put into the right place can work harder than you ever could on your own. That's when the light turned on for me. I realized that unless I began planting seeds in investments, I would be trading time for money until my last day. Now, here's the mistake many make. They say, "I'll start investing when I have enough money." But let me tell you, if you don't start with the little you have now, you won't start later when you have more. It's not the amount that counts in the beginning, it's the discipline. Even if it's just a few dollars redirected into an investment account each month, the habit itself is more valuable than the sum. That habit becomes the foundation upon which wealth is built. And yes, this requires patience. Money doesn't grow overnight, just as crops don't sprout the moment you plant them. But if you never plant, you'll never harvest. Each asset you build is like planting a tree, and years from now, you'll sit in the shade of what you created. So I tell you, a job is honorable. It gives you stability. But wealth requires that you take some of that stability and begin building for freedom. Because if you don't learn to make money work for you, you will spend your entire life working for money. When I was young and just beginning to understand money, someone told me, "Save all you can and you'll be secure." And I believed it. I thought the key to financial independence was to stack away as many dollars as possible in a bank account. But I soon discovered something unsettling. Money that sits still begins to shrink. Inflation quietly eats at its value. What could buy a basket of groceries last year might only buy half the basket today. That's when I realized saving alone would never get me where I wanted to go. Saving is only the first step, not the final destination. You see, money is like a seed. If you tuck it away in a drawer, it won't do anything. It just sits there. But if you plant it, nurture it, and let it grow, it multiplies. Saving protects you from emergencies, it's your shield. But investing multiplies, it's your sword. And to build wealth, you need both. The danger is in mistaking the shield for the prize. Too many people save all their lives, only to find that what they've stored isn't enough to sustain them when they stop working. I remember the first time I invested in something that paid me back without me lifting a finger. It wasn't a huge amount, but the feeling was unforgettable. My dollars had become little workers, busy while I was sleeping. That's when it struck me. Every dollar has a potential job, and it's your responsibility to assign it. Some dollars pay for your needs, some buy your comforts, but some should always be recruited into service, working in investments that grow. Imagine if each dollar you own had to show up for work each day. Would yours be unemployed, sitting idly in a savings account? Or would they be out there earning you dividends, interest, rental income, or business profits? Now, I'm not saying be reckless. I've seen people chase fast profits, get burned, and then swear off investing forever. That's not the way. You don't need to gamble to grow money. You need to be wise. Invest in things that appreciate, produce, and provide returns. A piece of property that earns rental income, a stock that pays dividends, a business that generates cash flow. These are vehicles that take money and put it to work. The secret is not in hoarding. Hoarding creates the illusion of safety, but it's like keeping seeds in a jar. They look safe, but they'll never become an orchard. Plant them, and in time you won't just have seeds, you'll have trees, fruit, and abundance. That's the miracle of growth. So, don't just save, grow. Save enough to give you a foundation, yes, but then direct your money to where it multiplies. Because if you treat every dollar like a productive employee, one day you'll look around and realize you have an entire workforce building your wealth even when you're not. When I look back at the early years of my life, I remember the frustration of wanting big results without having mastered the small beginnings. I wanted the car, the house, the freedom, but I hadn't yet learned how to properly handle even a few dollars in my pocket. And that's when I learned one of life's hardest truths. If you can't be trusted with little, you won't be trusted with much. Money has this way of magnifying who you already are. If you're careless with $100, you'll be careless with $10,000. If you waste $5, you'll waste $500. The number of zeros doesn't change the character of the person managing it. It only amplifies it. I've met people who tell me, when I earn more, then I'll start saving and investing. But the truth is, they never do. Because it's not about how much you make, it's about the habits you build with what you already have. Wealth doesn't begin with abundance. It begins with discipline. The person who sets aside $1 faithfully, without fail, is training a muscle far more important than the size of their income. They're building the discipline that will carry them when bigger amounts arrive. I remember a season when I was making very little. There wasn't much extra, and the temptation was to think, what difference does $1 or $2 make? But then I realized it wasn't about the amount, it was about the principle. If I could respect the smallest amounts, if I could treat them as significant, then I was preparing myself for the day when larger sums would come into my life. That's why I often say, don't despise the small amounts. $1 saved, $1 invested, $1 multiplied. It's not the money, it's the character it forges in you. Think of it like lifting weights. If you can't handle 10 pounds, you have no business dreaming of lifting 100. Financial discipline works the same way. The practice of saving 5, investing 10, tracking every expense down to the smallest coin, this is the training ground for wealth. And when you prove faithful with little, life has a way of entrusting you with more. There's also a deeper psychology here. Respecting small amounts rewires how you see money. It shifts you from thinking like a spender to thinking like a builder. Every small decision, every act of restraint, every choice to save instead of waste, it compounds, not just in your bank account, but in your character. And once your character matures, wealth can safely flow into your hands. So here's the challenge. Don't wait for the big paycheck before you change your habits. Start with what's in your wallet right now. Save $1, invest 5, track every expense, no matter how small. Because the truth is, it's never really about the money, it's about the person you're becoming. And if you can master the little, you'll be ready for the much. When I first started studying wealth, one of the lessons that hit me hardest was realizing how easily debt can trap a person who hasn't yet built discipline. I used to think debt was just part of the game, something everyone carried. Credit cards, car loans, little payments here and there. But here's the truth I discovered. Debt, when used carelessly, is nothing more than a tax on the undisciplined. It steals from your future to pay for impulses in the present. And that, my friends, is why so many people work all their lives but never experience freedom. They've chained themselves to lenders by buying things they didn't truly need with money they hadn't truly earned. Think about it. A credit card doesn't make you rich. It makes you comfortable with spending tomorrow's income today. A car loan doesn't build your future. It locks your future into years of monthly payments for something that only loses value the moment you drive it off the lot. And those easy payments on gadgets or luxuries, those are the silent killers of wealth. Because here's the sobering reality. Every dollar committed to paying back a lender is a dollar that can't be working for you. I remember a time when I was tempted by the buy now, pay later philosophy. It looked so appealing. Get the reward today, deal with the cost tomorrow. But every time I signed those papers, I wasn't just borrowing money, I was borrowing stress, borrowing sleepless nights, borrowing a smaller future. And it took me years to understand that when you live under the burden of debt, you're not working for yourself anymore. You're working for the bank. Now, I'm not saying all debt is bad. Used wisely, debt can be a tool. If you borrow to purchase an income-producing asset, something that pays you back more than it costs, that's not a chain, that's leverage. For example, using a loan to acquire property that generates rental income, or to expand a business that produces consistent profits. Now that can be smart. But borrowing for vacations, for luxuries, for consumer goods that lose value the moment you purchase them, that's financial cancer. It looks harmless at first, maybe even exciting, but over time, it eats away at your ability to build wealth. So the key is to know the difference. Ask yourself every time you're about to sign for debt, is this putting money in my pocket or is it taking money out? That one question can save you years of regret. Because if the answer is that it's taking money out, then you're not building wealth, you're financing your own poverty. Here's the challenge I would give you. Eliminate consumer debt from your life. Pay off the cards. Sell the unnecessary toys. Free yourself from the payments that steal your peace of mind. And once you're free, make a vow, if you ever borrow again, let it be only for assets that generate income, not liabilities that drain it. Because here's the reality. The person who avoids the trap of consumer debt walks lighter, sleeps better, and bills faster. And freedom, not fancy things, is the real prize of wealth. When I first learned the principle of paying yourself first, it completely shifted the way I looked at money. Up until then, I was like most people. I earned a paycheck, paid my bills, bought what I wanted, and if anything was left, maybe I saved it. But here's the problem. Nothing was ever. Life has a way of filling every empty pocket if you don't decide ahead of time where your money should go. That's why so many people live paycheck to paycheck. Not because they don't earn enough, but because they never prioritize themselves in their own financial story. The wealthy don't wait until the end of the month to see if something remains to save. They begin with themselves. Before the landlord, before the grocery store, before the tax collector, they set something aside. Even if it's just a small amount, it's theirs, locked away for their future, their freedom, their investments. And the miracle is that it's not the size of the portion that matters in the beginning, it's the habit. If you can set aside $1 out of 10, you'll have no trouble setting aside 10 out of 100 or 1,000 out of 10,000. The numbers grow as your income grows, but the discipline is born when the amounts are small. I'll tell you from experience, The first time I paid myself first, it felt almost wrong. I thought, how can I put money into savings when the bills are due? But what I learned was this: if you don't make room for your own financial future, nobody else will. The bills will always be there. The expenses will always be waiting. But your wealth won't appear unless you deliberately create it. And here's what's fascinating: you'll adjust. When you set aside 10% of your income, your mind and habits rearrange themselves to make the 90% work. But if you try to save whatever is left over, you'll be waiting forever. I've known people who said they couldn't afford to save, not even a few dollars. But here's the truth: if you can't save $5 out of $50, you'll never save $500 out of $5,000. The habit is the seed. The discipline is the foundation. The wealthy aren't wealthy just because they make more money. They're wealthy because they kept a portion of it consistently until it grew large enough to work for them. So here's the practical challenge. The next time you earn money, before you pay a single bill, take 10% and put it into a separate account. Don't touch it. Don't borrow from it. Don't spend it. That account is not for emergencies, not for vacations. It's the foundation of your future investments. And if you can't do 10% yet, start with 5%. Start with 1% if you must. The amount doesn't matter. The act does. Because the truth is, until you learn to pay yourself first, you'll always be last in line. But the moment you start, you've joined the small percentage of people who build wealth intentionally rather than waiting for it accidentally. I learned early in life that there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. A lot of people spend their entire lives busy at work, busy with errands, busy filling every hour with activity, but when you look closer, they're not really moving forward. They're just spinning the wheels, mistaking motion for progress. And here's the truth: the marketplace doesn't reward you for being busy. It rewards you for being valuable. If you want your income to grow, you've got to grow. If you want opportunities to open up, you have to bring more to the table than the next person. I remember working long days, thinking the harder I worked, the more money I'd eventually make. But then I discovered that the man next to me, who worked fewer hours, was earning twice as much. I couldn't understand it at first. Then it hit me. He had skills I didn't have, knowledge I hadn't gained, and habits I hadn't built. He wasn't being rewarded for his time. He was being rewarded for his value. That realization changed everything for me. Your income will rarely exceed your personal development. If you stop growing, your income stops growing. That's why the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. Learning new skills, improving your communication, developing your character, sharpening your thinking. Because the world doesn't pay you for the hours you put in, it pays you for the solutions you provide, the problems you solve, the leadership you demonstrate, and the results you deliver. That's where true wealth begins. And don't make the mistake of thinking you need to wait for someone to give you permission to grow. You don't need a title. You don't need a promotion. You don't even need recognition at first. You simply need to start adding value wherever you are. When you make yourself indispensable, opportunities have a way of finding you. People are always looking for those who stand out, who do more than expected, who know more than average, and who think beyond the ordinary. Now, the practical step is simple. Commit to working harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you give 8 hours to your employer, give 1 hour to your personal growth. Read a book, take a course, practice a skill, learn something new every single day. It doesn't take long before the compound effect of daily learning makes you dramatically more valuable than the person who never invests in themselves. Remember this: activity alone won't make you rich. You could fill every day with work and end up exhausted, frustrated, and broke. But if you discipline yourself to become valuable, If you transform your mind, sharpen your skills, and build your capacity, your value will rise. And when your value rises, your income follows. The marketplace always pays for value, because at the end of the day, it's not about how busy you are, it's about how valuable you become. And the day you commit to that, your financial future changes forever. One of the greatest traps I've seen people fall into, and I've watched it ruin more than a few promising futures, is what we call lifestyle inflation. That moment when income goes up, and instead of letting the difference work for them, people let their expenses balloon even faster. Suddenly the new car shows up, the bigger house, the fancier clothes, the vacations that weren't even thought of before. And at the end of the month, they're still broke. Only now, they're broke in style. And that's not wealth, that's slavery-wearing designer shoes. I've often said, humility is one of the strongest wealth strategies you can have. See, when your income starts to grow, you'll feel the pull of society whispering, show it, prove it, spend it. And if you're not careful, that whisper becomes a command you obey. But real wealth is quiet. It grows behind the scenes. It doesn't scream from the driveway or flash from your wristwatch. It shows up in freedom, in options, in the ability to say no when everyone else is forced to say yes. I remember when I started to earn a little more than before. Oh, the temptations were real. Friends encouraged me to upgrade my lifestyle, to match the level they thought I had reached. But I chose another path. Instead of spending every new dollar, I let the gap widen between what I earned and what I spent. That gap is where freedom is born. It's where investments grow. It's where your future self begins to thank you for the discipline you practice today. The strategy is simple. Keep your lifestyle modest while your wealth builds in the background. If you can resist the temptation to inflate your spending every time your income rises, you'll separate yourself from 90% of people who never get ahead financially. Because here's the truth. The more you show off wealth, the less of it you actually have. The more you preserve and invest, the more of it you quietly accumulate. And when real wealth finally shows, it doesn't need validation. It speaks for itself in the form of freedom. Now, the practical step is this. When your income increases, instead of asking, "What can I buy?" ask, "What can I keep?" If you get a raise, save or invest half of it and live on the rest. If you get a windfall, don't race to upgrade your lifestyle. Upgrade your investments. Train yourself to delay the gratification of showing so you can enjoy the satisfaction of owning assets, freedom, choices. So let me remind you, humility isn't weakness, it's wisdom. A simple lifestyle doesn't mean you're not prospering. It means you're building something lasting. The house, the car, the image, they don't prove wealth. What proves wealth is the ability to live on less, invest the difference, and build a foundation that can't be shaken. Because when you avoid lifestyle inflation, you give yourself the priceless gift of growing rich quietly instead of living broke loudly. One of the most dangerous financial positions you can ever be in is depending on a single stream of income. Think about it. If one job, one contract, or one business is the only source that puts food on your table, you're just one decision, one downturn, or one disruption away from financial disaster. That's not freedom, that's fragility. Real wealth is built on stability, and stability comes from multiple streams of income. It's like a river with many tributaries. If one dries up, the river still flows. But if you only have one stream, and it runs dry, you're left stranded. I remember in my early years, I had only one stream of income, my job. I thought that as long as I worked hard, my financial future would be secure. But one day, reality hit me. I realized I was building my life on sand, not on stone. That's when I understood the difference between making a living and building wealth. A job gives you a living, but multiple streams of income create freedom. The wealthy don't put all their eggs in one basket. They spread them wisely across businesses, investments, real estate, royalties, and more. They make sure that if one basket tips, the others still keep producing. The strategy here is straightforward. Start with one source, but don't stop there. As you grow, branch out. Maybe your first stream is your salary. That's fine. Use it as your foundation. But then, create a second stream, perhaps a side business, freelance work, or an online project. Let a third stream be investments, stocks, index funds, or real estate. Later, a fourth could be royalties from writing, creating, or licensing something of value. The goal is diversification, not just for the sake of having more, but for the security of knowing that one disruption won't take you under. Here's the practical step. Begin by setting aside a small percentage of your current income and dedicate it to building another stream. Maybe that means taking $100 a month and investing it in dividend stocks, or starting a small online venture that grows slowly but surely. The key isn't to create multiple streams overnight. It's to begin laying the foundation now. Over time, those streams can widen into rivers that sustain your lifestyle without you being chained to one source. And let me warn you, most people will tell you they can't think about multiple streams because their current one barely covers the bills. That's the poverty trap. The mindset that says, I can't start until I have more, is exactly why they'll never have more. The truth is, you start with what you have, however little, and discipline yourself to direct it into something productive. You don't wait for abundance to create streams. You create streams so abundance can arrive. So don't ever settle for a single paycheck, a single client, or a single source of revenue. Because the moment you do, you've handed your freedom to chance. One stream makes a living, but multiple streams, that's where wealth, stability, and real independence are born. Delay of gratification is one of the most misunderstood principles in wealth building, yet it is also one of the most powerful. You see, many people spend their lives chasing the next thrill, the next purchase, or the immediate comfort, thinking that life is about enjoying the moment. But there is a subtle danger in living entirely for now. When you trade today's potential for momentary pleasure, you are selling a future of freedom at a discount. True wealth is not about the immediate indulgence. It is about the ability to choose long-term abundance over short-term satisfaction. I've observed countless people who work hard all week only to spend every dime on what feels good in the moment. They celebrate every small income spike with a splurge, thinking life is about enjoyment now. But by doing this, they are reinforcing a cycle of scarcity, never allowing money to compound or grow. I remember early in my life, I had a modest income, and I faced the temptation to spend every extra dollar on things that gave instant gratification. But I made a conscious decision. Instead of giving in to impulse, I set aside small amounts for investments, even when it hurt. The result wasn't immediate luxury, but over the years, that discipline multiplied, producing freedom I never would have had if I had only indulged. The strategy is simple but not easy. Learn to say not now, today, so you can say yes to the life you truly desire tomorrow. This means prioritizing long-term goals over fleeting pleasures. It may be skipping a weekly outing, holding off on buying the newest gadget, or resisting lifestyle inflation when income rises. Each sacrifice builds a layer of wealth that compounds quietly behind the scene. The wealthy understand this principle intuitively. They defer gratification consistently, not as a punishment, but as a deliberate strategy to create financial freedom. A practical step is to create a system of delayed rewards. Set aside a defined percentage of your income for investments and assets before you allocate money for entertainment or non-essential spending. Track the growth of this reserve over time and watch the compounding effect turn what seems like a small sacrifice today into significant wealth tomorrow. Treat each delayed indulgence as a deposit into your future freedom account. Remember, wealth is built on the foundation of discipline. By choosing to delay gratification now, you are planting seeds that will grow into gardens of abundance long before anyone else in your circle even begins to see the possibility. The weekend pleasures can wait, but the mansion, the financial freedom, the vacations you dream about, they arrive only after you honor the practice of sacrifice today. The lesson is clear. Trade a little temporary comfort for long-term freedom, because it is the disciplined choices of today that shape the life of tomorrow. Financial ignorance is far more expensive than any loan or credit card debt you might carry. I've seen people work their whole lives earning decent incomes, only to find themselves trapped because they never invested in understanding money itself. Knowledge is the currency that precedes wealth. Without it, every dollar you earn risks being mismanaged, every opportunity overlooked, and every mistake amplified. When I first started in business, I was barely making ends meet, but I committed myself to learning. I read books about finance, listened to those who had walked the path before me, and asked questions until I understood the principles behind money, markets, and human behavior. That education, not luck, turns small earnings into a foundation for lasting wealth. The philosophy is simple. Ignorance compounds losses, while knowledge compounds gains. Most people avoid learning about money because it seems complicated or uncomfortable. They would rather watch television, scroll social media, or follow fleeting trends than spend time understanding the mechanisms that create and preserve wealth. Yet the reality is, the rich study money systematically. They don't just earn it, they comprehend it. They understand how interest works, how assets appreciate, and how taxes and inflation can silently erode what they have. They also understand themselves, their tendencies, biases, and weaknesses, so that their behavior aligns with their goals. Knowledge builds foresight. Foresight prevents loss. The strategy is to treat learning as an investment. Dedicate time daily or weekly to reading books, attending seminars, or engaging with mentors who understand finance deeply. Study markets, understand investments, and explore wealth-building tools like real estate, stocks, and businesses. Focus not just on how to make money, but on how to keep and grow money. Knowledge transforms your relationship with risk, turning fear into calculated opportunity and hesitation into decisive action. Practically, set aside a portion of your income, say 5%, to invest in your financial education. Buy books that teach investment principles, subscribe to courses, or attend workshops led by those who have built significant wealth. Keep a notebook to capture insights and, most importantly, apply what you learn. Action is the amplifier of knowledge. Reading alone won't create wealth, but applying even one principle consistently can change the trajectory of your finances. Remember, wealth is not just earned, it is understood. When you commit to learning, you pay off the costliest debt of all, ignorance. The sooner you start, the sooner your decisions compound into freedom, security, and abundance. Every day, the choices you make either construct your legacy or erode it without you noticing. Wealth is not merely a number in a bank account. It is a reflection of your habits, your discipline, and the values you live by consistently. Too many people think of money as a tool for temporary pleasure, but true wealth is cultivated through purpose-driven action. It is about creating a lifestyle of responsibility, foresight, and generosity that endures long after you are gone. I've watched countless people focus solely on immediate needs, thinking that working harder today will somehow secure tomorrow. Yet they fail to build systems, habits, or influence that survive beyond their own effort. The rich understand that what they do today echoes through the lives of others, through families, communities, and businesses. Philosophically, your habits are the foundation of your legacy. If you rise early, educate yourself, invest wisely, give generously, and prioritize long-term growth, you are not just accumulating wealth, you are creating a culture that others can emulate. I remember when I first started in business. My income was modest, but I made it a habit to invest in knowledge, network with ambitious individuals, and track my progress daily. Each small act, repeated consistently, compounded into opportunities I could never have imagined. That is the principle. The wealth of tomorrow is planted in the daily disciplines of today. The strategy is simple but not easy. Design your days with your legacy in mind. Allocate time and resources to what builds long-term value, not short-term satisfaction. Teach your children or mentees the habits of financial responsibility. Systematize your investments. Automate savings. And surround yourself with people whose habits elevate your own. By turning these practices into daily routines, you are effectively building a framework that can withstand life's uncertainties. Practically, begin with one habit that directly contributes to your legacy. Write down your goals each morning. Review your investments weekly, or set aside a portion of income for giving and mentorship. Keep a journal to track progress and reflect on the impact of your actions. Ask yourself daily, will what I do today strengthen my legacy or weaken it? Consistency is key. One small action each day, repeated over years, becomes monumental. Remember, wealth is more than money. It is the sum of your habits, decisions, and influence. The legacy you leave is the true measure of your success. Every plan is only as good as the attention you give it. Building wealth isn't a set-it-and-forget-it endeavor. It requires consistent monitoring, reflection, and adjustment. Life changes. Your income, expenses, opportunities, and even your mindset evolve over time. If your financial plan remains static while your circumstances change, it becomes a map that no longer matches the terrain. I've seen people diligently save and invest, yet fail to review their strategies, only to realize years later that they missed better opportunities or were carrying hidden risks. Wealth is not just about having a plan, it's about actively engaging with it, learning from results, and recalibrating when necessary. Philosophically, the active review demonstrates respect for your money and your goals. It signals that you are not leaving your financial future to chance or external forces. Wealth building is an ongoing conversation between your intentions and reality. By setting aside time monthly or quarterly to review your financial statements, budgets, and investments, you create awareness. You notice trends, both positive and negative, before they become problems. You identify assets that are underperforming, expenses that are creeping up, or opportunities that can accelerate your growth. The rich understand that money flows to those who manage it proactively, not reactively. Strategically, this practice allows you to make decisions with foresight rather than impulse. For example, A quarterly review may reveal that your investment portfolio is too heavily weighted in one sector, or that your emergency fund needs topping up after an unexpected expense. It also provides a moment to celebrate progress, reinforcing habits and maintaining motivation. During my early years, I maintained a simple ledger where I tracked every dollar, reviewed monthly, and noted what worked and what didn't. That discipline created clarity, reduced anxiety, and allowed me to pivot quickly when opportunities arose. Practically, start by scheduling a recurring date on your calendar for financial review. Assess your income, spending patterns, and investment performance. Compare these against your goals and adjust allocations as necessary. Ask yourself, are my investments aligned with my long-term vision? Am I maintaining sufficient liquidity? Have I identified new opportunities for growth? Keep notes and use them to guide decisions, ensuring that each adjustment is purposeful rather than reactionary. By making review and adjustment a habit, you transform your financial plan into a living, evolving blueprint for success. Wealth is not static, and neither should your plan be. Regular review is how intention meets action, ensuring your money serves you today and multiplies for tomorrow. As we draw this journey of financial wisdom to a close, let me leave you with a thought that has guided every step I've taken in life. Wealth is not merely about the accumulation of money. It is about the cultivation of discipline, vision, and purpose. Too many people chase dollars without understanding the principles that make those dollars work for them. They labor tirelessly, yet wealth slips through their fingers because they misunderstand the relationship between action, thought, and consequence. True financial success begins in the mind. If you think small, act small, and fear risk, your wealth will mirror those limitations. But if you commit to thinking rich, acting disciplined, and making decisions aligned with long-term vision, money begins to respond to your intent, almost as if it recognizes the value you are creating. Throughout this talk, we've covered principles that may seem simple on the surface, yet they are profound in their impact when applied consistently. Living on less than you earn, saving and investing with purpose, reinvesting profits, building multiple income streams, and avoiding unnecessary debt are not just mechanical exercises. They are expressions of character and self-mastery. Every dollar you choose to control, every investment you make with foresight, and every habit you cultivate is a brick in the foundation of your financial future. I've seen it time and again. People who honor small steps, who exercise patience and consistency, eventually reach heights others only dream about. Wealth compounds not only in your bank account, but in your habits, your mindset, and your ability to see opportunities before they become obvious. The richest individuals are not those who react impulsively to trends. They are those who take principled action, who review and adjust their plans regularly, and who recognize that discipline today yields freedom tomorrow. This is why financial literacy, daily habits, and strategic planning are non-negotiable. It's why reinvesting profits before indulging in lifestyle upgrades transforms a modest income into lasting wealth. And it's why giving, mentoring, and contributing multiplies your influence as much as your finances. The laws of wealth are not just financial, they are moral and psychological. They demand patience, foresight, integrity, and courage. Now, this is not a speech for passive listening. These principles only work when you commit to action. Start today. Write down your definition of wealth. Identify one expense you can cut and redirect into savings. Schedule a monthly financial review and stick to it. Invest in yourself and your skills consistently. Surround yourself with people who elevate your thinking and challenge you to grow. Begin to see your money not as something to spend frivolously, but as a tool that can work tirelessly on your behalf. The choice is yours. You can continue to drift along with the currents of financial uncertainty, or you can take deliberate, disciplined steps that put you in control. Wealth is available to anyone willing to learn, act, and persist. It is a process, a journey, and a transformation. The difference between those who struggle financially and those who succeed is not luck. It is the willingness to think differently, to act purposefully, and to persist long after the excitement of new knowledge has faded. So, commit today to think rich, to act with discipline, and to cultivate habits that create real, lasting wealth. Your future self will thank you for the decisions you make now, for the actions you take, and for the life of freedom, purpose, and abundance you are building, one disciplined step at a time. Wealth is not a destination. It is a journey shaped by the decisions you make today. Start that journey now.